This episode of the Mosaic Life podcast is brought to you by the Mosaic Life Circle. So what is the circle and why is it called that? Well, it's our email list, and we thought we were being clever by trying to work our logo into the name of our email list. You know, not everything takes on meaning from the start, but sometimes it embodies it as you grow. If you're a new listener and you dig what you hear today with Rick, sign up for the circle to receive notifications when new guest interviews are released or when we drop our other types of content. If you've stuck with us through all 43 episodes so far, you're going to be notified when your favorite types of episodes come out. On top of that, you will be the first to hear about contests and merchandise deals. Head over to themosaiclifepodcast.com or check your show notes to sign up. Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Mosaic Life Podcast. Really excited about this. I was thinking as we were moving forward with this podcast that our sphere of influence, if you will, or I guess our circle of colleagues, guests, interviewees is growing beyond first and second degrees. Today, we had the absolute pleasure of talking with Rick Clemons, and I will tell you a little bit about Rick in a moment, but Rick was introduced to us by Matt Ward, who was introduced to us by Frank Gagan, who I knew previously. And so as we continue to grow the podcast and as we continue to meet these fascinating people, we just get to learn so much about worlds that we had no idea existed, which is a bit of foreshadowing for this episode. It was not planned this way. But Rick Clemons, he's an out-of-the-closet gay man, and his story is nothing short of sensational. I think he'd be comfortable me saying the way he came out of the closet was not sexy, not the first time nor the second time. In fact, both times were major turning points in his life, especially as he came to realize what his purpose was. And so, like I mentioned, it was not planned that we were going to have Rick on the podcast and subsequently release this episode at the end of Pride Month. It was just with a bit of serendipity that we were introduced to him and were given the opportunity to do so. And I love his bio here. It's been said he takes you to the party, the pulpit, the wake, and then back to the party. And they're right. It's all true. That's exactly how Rick Clemons wakes people and organizations up to disrupt the cultures that aren't working for them, guides them to bust through the closets that hold them hostage, and kicks them in the ass to make the bold moves they need to make without apologies. He unexpectedly launched his own entrepreneurial destiny, leveraging his past lives in hospitality, branding, marketing, and technology, discovering that coaching, consulting, speaking, writing, and podcasting turned him on. He's a world record holder, which I don't even know how we didn't talk about that, a cyclist, and spends more money on wine than his daughters. That may be BS, but it's close to the truth. And everything he knows about guiding people and organizations out to live uncloseted lives, he learned from coming out of his own closet. That's no BS. Our conversation with Rick is so freaking deep and so inspirational. I paused several times because I was getting choked up. We talk about happiness. We talk about what it was like for Rick to come out of the closet twice, first to his parents and then to his wife, and how that changed his life for the better and how he was unapologetic about wanting the best for his own destiny. We talk about Rick's writing and so much more, including how to discover your life orgasm. I'll leave you with that. Enjoy our conversation with Rick Clemons. Welcome to the Mosaic Life Podcast.
Life is an art. Every moment a picture painted in time. The color, texture, lighting, all context. The Mosaic Life vision is to cast a warm glow on your masterpiece, highlighting the struggle while showcasing the culmination of years of hard work.
Join us for guided meditations, interviews with authors and leaders, and engaging conversation as we explore the depths of our consciousness. Welcome back to the Mosaic Life podcast, or welcome for the first time for those of you who are just finding us. We appreciate all of you, truly. Thank you for joining us. Ernie, my friend, thank you for being back in my tiny studio office here. It's good to see your face.
Yeah, it's good to see you, man. Glad to do this in person.
Yeah.
We've been remote for so long.
I know. Well, today we welcome Rick Clemons. Well, Rick, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you taking some time to chat with us today.
Of course, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, let's clear the air. You were referred to us by Matt Ward, and I'm trying to remember how you and Matt know each other, or whether or not this was just a random, Facebook thing where, hey, Rick, you should be on this podcast. It was pretty cool.
It's interesting, actually. Matt and I were both members. He still is. I'm not, but we were both members of National Speakers Association. And it's probably been 4 years ago. The conference was in Orlando, and I arrive at the airport and I'm going outside to wait for my Uber Lyft, and standing there, and these two women were standing next to me, and they didn't know how to use their Uber Lyft app or anything. So I'm kind of helping them out. I see this guy standing over there, and he's like, well, actually, you're supposed to be waiting downstairs if you're going to get Lyft. It was kind of a weird thing. Like, Lyft picked up on one level, Uber picked up on the other level.
Territory.
And I'm like, oh, okay, great, right? And so I leave, head to the hotel. I stop, get some water at the convenience store. So I have water at the hotel because we're staying at Disney, so if you get it at Disney, you're going to pay, all this crazy money for stuff, right? I walk into the Disney hotel. I'm standing there in line, and suddenly I look to my left, and it's the same guy that I saw at the airport. So we kind of had this laugh, and we're like, so you here for NSA? Yeah. And he goes, oh, so are you doing the first day pre-event? I'm like, yeah, so am I. And there you go. The rest of it's history. We became friends. We've known each other now ever since then. And we send each other referrals for podcasts, speeches, all that sort of stuff. So that's how we met. Kind of a random, weird hookup, so to speak. But it's paid off huge dividends.
Fantastic. And it's worked out well for us. So we thank you both.
Yeah.
Of course.
So what's this organization you guys were a part of, the National Speakers Association? What was that?
So it's the largest association for speakers in the USA, and I think actually in the world, where speakers come together for educational purposes, growing as a community, learning the craft and the business of speaking. And there's probably, I think there's at least 3,500, 4,000, I don't know. It's probably more than that. But at the convention, it's typically 2,500 people or so that show up, and it's 3 days of having some fun, learning from one another, getting some insights on the best practices for growing your speaking business. There's actually a certification that happens through National Speakers Association to become a certified public speaker. And it's a pretty rigorous program. So people join for a lot of different reasons. I joined just to go to the parties.
Yeah, why not?
Nice.
But it was great. I belonged for a few years, and then I moved into the middle of nowhere, and there is not a speaker association close by, other than if I travel 3 hours each direction. I'm like, nope, on a Saturday morning, my behind is staying in bed, and I'll do just fine. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how we met, and that's where we got to know each other.
Very cool.
You're on the West Coast, right? You said Pacific.
I am.
Where about?
West Coast, San Luis Obispo, Central Coast, California, right about 6 miles from the beach, dead center between San Francisco and LA.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds pretty amazing.
It's a horrible place to have to live. But somebody's got to do it, right?
It sounds like it.
That's why you stay in bed on Saturdays, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah. Usually I like, okay, should we go to the beach now, or is it too early? So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to come out with it and say, one of the first things I caught on your website was discover your life orgasm. So I just felt like that's a good place to really kick up the conversation. And
man, you're going to hold me right to like the first thing. It's like, okay, here's how you have a life orgasm.
He's never coming back on our podcast.
Rick, how do you have a life orgasm? I really want to know.
Well, first of all, you wake up and decide if you're staying in bed or you're getting out of bed, because we know that most orgasms can happen. Well, mostly in bed, but
Sure.
Most of it is. Life is just full of opportunities and orgasms if you give yourself the permission to go experience the pleasure of a life orgasm. And for a lot of the people that I've had the beautiful pleasure to work with as a coach and then to speak in front of, it's about might as well just dive in there. It's about coming out of your closet, whatever that closet looks like.
Sure.
And you cannot have those orgasms until you realize, okay, I am holding myself back. I'm stuck in a closet and I've got to come out, whether it's that literal coming out of the closet or whether it's like, hey, there's this thing that's holding me back and it's time to kick the doors down.
Yeah, and I know we're going to dig into many facets of that, but I will say, from anecdotally, I am self-employed. I have been for about 2 years, but it's always been something that I've dreamt of doing. And the thing that was holding me back was the comfort of having a salary, the comfort of knowing where my next paycheck is coming from. So, the people who they want to do all of this, but they're scared to kick those doors down. I mean, what's the soundbite you can, if there is a soundbite that you can tell them just to fucking do it? I mean, you have the skills, you have the tenacity to go out there and do these things that you want to do. How do you coach people in that direction?
Well, you asked me for the soundbite and you already delivered. You just fucking go do it. It's pretty dang easy. Now, I mean, it is part of it, but the soundbite that always gets me that is you have to give yourself permission. We can have all these grandiose dreams and we can jerk ourselves around or jerk ourselves off, whatever you want to call it, about, oh, this sounds great. Let's go do this. And, oh, but I can't. And it's like, really? So then you get into that space where you're making all the excuses and all that sort of stuff. And before you know it, you are the reason. Yeah. You are the reason you are not giving yourself permission to do it. And I come from the same space. I've been working from home now literally since around 2002, 2003, not full-time back then.
Sure.
But I worked for a company that was really great about, we're going to build a virtual company. We're going to create this entire company so that if none of us ever had to be in the footprint of the office, we could make it work. And then that was well before COVID. So everybody had to learn how to do this really fast in the last few months. But it was really interesting to be in that environment. And then slowly I started working a day, then 2 days, then 3 days. And finally, I'm like, by the time I got to 3 days, I'm like, no, I don't think I'm coming in the office, guys, because that's like driving down the parking lot freeway of the 91 here in California, and hour and a half on the parking lot in and an hour and a half on the parking lot home. Nope, I'm really enjoying working from home here. So you guys should have never tempted me with that. But it is about giving yourself permission to go do that thing you want to do.
Yeah. Something that you said in the beginning here a few moments ago, it really struck.
Don't be making me to sound out like God. I did not say in the beginning. Okay?
Yeah. No, well, in the beginning of the podcast. So even before we were this far, you mentioned to be able to really embrace the pleasure of life, that there's got to be, and I'm of course paraphrasing what you said, but there's got to be a willingness not to hide everything, or hide certain parts of yourself. It's the hiding in general that keeps us from being able to experience life fully. And then now you're talking about giving yourself permission. These have been really big, influential thoughts in my life and practices in my life, whether it be like shadow work, which is a different type of, an interesting type of therapeutic, personal development type work, or even just being able to fully dive into what you say you're going to do. How have these lessons come to be some of your core values, I imagine, in your life?
Well, I was sitting under the Bodhi tree one day. So, gosh, I wish it was actually that easy. It literally came from some pretty rough stuff of hiding myself for many, many, many years, and then doing a big step and coming out of the closet and then going back in the closet and hiding myself all over again. And I went from 19 years old coming out of the closet to my parents about my sexuality, like, okay, no, false alarm, that wasn't really happening. And then literally at age 36, realizing, no, this is who I am. And nobody's expectations, no values and belief system that doesn't match up to my values and belief system is going to prevent me from being who I am. And if I had known then in 1999, when I came out of the closet, that Prince's, music would be like, oh, now I get it, why I'm doing this, dance like it's 1999. I probably would have said, no way. Yeah. This is really what it feels like to go out and be yourself. And if somebody had told me back then that because of coming out of the closet as a gay man, that here 20 years later, I would be on a podcast or be running my own podcast and coaching people and speaking on stages around the world about stepping out to live unapologetically, I would have told them, you're more stoned than I am, and get out of my face. Because that is not, no, I'm going through a hell of a divorce. I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to have a house. I'm thinking I'm going to be living in my car, trying to manage my 2 beautiful little girls. And life does not look like it's going to be anything but the pits.
Yeah.
But everything I learned from coming out of the closet is why I'm where I am today. Because it gave me the insights, the fortitude, the drive, the determination, kind of the fuck you attitude. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah.
Nice.
Rick, I will say you are very engaging on stage, and you sent us a 7 or 8 minute clip of a presentation you were giving, or however you want to word that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it was very empowering, and I do want to talk quite a bit about that. But you there's one part where you mentioned that you're in London, and I imagine this is something you talk about frequently. You said 2 things that tore me up. As a straight male in my 30s, it just listening to you, it tore me up. You said you fell in love and then you fell apart, and that made me want to cry, and I didn't even know why. And you didn't elaborate on it. You said that, and I resonated with it. And I was hoping you could tell that story just a little bit more.
I have no idea what you're talking about, man.
Oh, well, shit. Okay.
Oh, you go right again for the jugular.
Yeah.
So, that was probably one of the most awakening. Everybody talks about being woke.
Yeah.
And that word wasn't even being used back in 1999, but now I can say that was probably the first time I can really relate to what it means to be woke, because I had been living, and this is where you guys will get the hate mail. I can't believe we have this guy on who talks about being a, cheater and all this sort of stuff. But, I had been living a life in the closet, hiding, not living my truth, but yet living my truth. And I'm not proud of that part of my life. I never say I'm so cool because I did this. What I feel is I did this because I had to find myself.
Yeah. And
to the people who are like, well, why did you even get married and all this stuff? It's like, well, you didn't stand in my shoes. You didn't go through my experience where you were told that you were going to go to hell if you were that. And it was a completely different time. And I'm talking the 90s. Before the 90s, it was even worse. But
right.
When this whole situation happened, I was in London for a business trip and doing my gig. I was director of marketing for a software company, making good money. I was running a trade show in London. We had an office there. And my little escape hatch was always when I was out on the road, for the most part. I did kind of screw around when I was at home too, but I knew I could always go take care of what needed taken care of to feel myself as a gay man and live my life as a gay man, because I was thousands of miles away from home. And I know it was divine intervention that happened that night, because I had come back from the trade show. All my team was going out. I happened to be going to an awards dinner for our company because we had designed a software, and Microsoft and a couple others were giving us these great awards. But I was the only one who was going to participate at this particular function. And I thought, thank goodness, I can go get the schmoozing done as soon as this is over, get out of here, go back and just crash in my room.
Yeah.
I had no intentions of doing what I would normally do, like, hey, let's see if I can find someone. And this is before all the apps we have these days to connect with people. This was like you really had to kind of work at things to make anything happen. And I remember coming in the hotel, walking past the bar going, God, I hope nobody I know is sitting in the bar, because I know I'll get sucked into, oh, come have a drink, let's, right?
Yeah.
And I remember looking in the bar, there was nobody there. And I'm like, oh, cool. And as I rode the elevator up, something said, this is your turn. This is your time. You could go to gay London and nobody's going to see you. Every time I had traveled there, I'd kind of hung out with our gay and lesbian, folks that are on the team.
Sure.
And I'd been to a couple of bars, but I'm like, none of them are with you. You could go and you could really enjoy yourself. And in that short little ride up the lift, because I think I only went from, first floor, what they call lobby for us, first for them, up to like 3. So it was a short elevator ride. I did that. No, you're not going to do this. You're too tired. Okay, let's go. And I'm like, well, I got to change clothes. And so I changed clothes. And again, as I came down, my heart started beating really fast. I thought, but what if you come down and somebody's in the bar? Nobody was in the bar. What if you go outside and somebody sees you leaving? Nobody was outside. Well, what if you get to the tube stop and somebody's just getting off? Nobody was getting off and coming back towards the hotel. Well, what if you get in Piccadilly Circus and somebody sees you? I'm like, okay, by then my mind's gone, yeah, somebody could see you, but wake up, buddy. You're 5,000 miles from home. Who the hell's going to see you, right? Yeah. And even as I got to the, quote, gay area of London, I stood outside of a bar, scared to death. I just knew I was going to walk in and somebody was going to see me. And then I walked in, scared to death. My whole time I'm thinking, there's a big neon sign on my head saying he's not gay, he's straight, but he thinks he's gay, and everybody, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff's going on, blinking lights the whole night.
Right.
Sat down, had a drink, and just as I was literally getting up, ready to leave, I feel this tap on my shoulder, and I thought, oh, busted. And I turn around, and there's this tall, handsome guy. And he said, can I buy you a pint, mate? Now, I usually can do that with an English accent. My English accent is not that good these days. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm getting old or whatever. But I saw this guy, and I'm like, whoa, this guy is beautiful. But I didn't go to the normal place of, God, I just wish we could go hook up and get it over with. And we started chatting, and we started having a drink, and one thing led to another, and we're dancing, we're going bar to bar. I remember going to this underground bar called Heaven, which is no longer in London, but it was literally like heaven. And I was just like, oh my God, this sea of people. And it was in an old tube station and all this sort of stuff. Cher was playing in the background because it was her Believe album, it was that time for her. And I thought, wow, this is really heaven. And then he said, you want to come back to my hotel? And suddenly something turned off. I was like, okay, been here, done this.
Right.
And I was used to this. This was the easy part. I was like, okay, yeah, hop in the cab, let's go. We get there, and beautiful hotel room. And suddenly he's like, make yourself comfortable. Here's a robe. And he goes, if you want to take a shower. And I'm like, okay. And I come out, and just as I come out in my robe, I hear the doorbell ring. And I'm kind of like, oh, wow, this hotel had doorbells. This was like swanky, right? He goes, oh, that must be the butler. And I'm like, butler? What? Okay. And then I freaked because I'm like, oh my God, I've never been in like a hotel room like this where somebody's coming in the room. And again, my crazy mind is going out of control. And it was the butler with a fruit tray and some wine. And we just laid in bed and we started talking, and we talked and we talked. And suddenly the light bulb went off, and this is when the woke happened. That was the night, as you know in the talk where I say that was the night. There was no sex. I fell in love and I fell apart. Because for the first time in all those crazy hookup years, I saw what was possible. And the irony to the whole thing that made this move even quicker along was he was British. I lived in Irvine, California, in Orange County. Yeah. And lo and behold, he lived in San Francisco.
Wow.
And that changed everything.
Yeah. It's crazy, incredible story, man. To find yourself in that way. And then I think of the next step where you have to then walk yourself, metaphorically, to the train station and into the gay area in London. But you have to do this now in your life, right? Where you have to, you've realized something profoundly different within you, this part of accepting yourself that you haven't, and you see what's possible. Now you have to walk back into your life and with these potentially what ifs, right? You're walking back into your home. Man, I can only imagine.
Oh, it's huge.
Only imagine how that feels.
It was 2 days. Yeah. It was 2 days later. I got on a plane to go home, and I literally grabbed a notebook in the airport, like just a simple spiral notebook, and literally sat there on the flight the entire time writing down every reason, every fear, every excuse, every possibility of why I was about to fly home and tell my wife I was gay and I wanted a divorce. And I remember getting to the LAX airport, and this again was, we had pagers, we didn't have cell phones at this time, calling her from a payphone and said, I've landed, I'll be home in like an hour to hour and a half, depending on traffic. And she's like, great, I can't wait to see you. And we had 2 little kids. My youngest was just 9 months old. My oldest was not quite 4, and thinking, really? This is what you're going to do? And after she said, I can't wait to see you. And I said, yeah, I can't wait to see you either. We've got some stuff we need to talk about. And I caught myself. I'm like, damn it, why did you say that? Yeah. But I quickly hung up, got my car, and I headed down to home, hour and a half. And I remember about 3 times in that trip, looking in my rear view mirror and there being semi trucks and thinking, it's really easy, man. Just turn the wheel. Just turn the wheel, and nobody ever has to find out. And I'm really thankful that that isn't what I did. I mean, obviously I'm still here.
Right.
Told her what had gone down, and literally she threw me out of the house that night. Jeez. But it was the beginning of the beginning.
Yeah. This does seem in the way that you describe it, and oftentimes it does in our life when we come to a point where we have these realizations that the recipe was just put together perfectly. Like there couldn't have been another way that night happened for you to give you just enough courage to go home and take action into getting your life as you wanted to live it, as you deserve to live it from who you are, authentic. I wonder, how you take this. Is this something we can manufacture in our lives? There has to be something potent to get us to really go all in, or I would think, or maybe it's just like we can chant affirmations every day and then finally go all in. But I don't know if you could expand on that a little bit, if I'm making sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because I just recently interviewed somebody on my podcast where we talk about the certainty of needing to not be uncertain and how we live so much of our life wanting to get rid of the uncertainty so that we can have that certainty. But what happens when we allow the uncertainty to just be and we live through it? That's what gets us to the certainty. And I know for me, I lived that, oh my God, I have to know that I got to have the money. I got to know that I'm going to meet the guy, and I got to know that, the kids are going to be okay. And there was a lot of, I got to know. And to your point of, is this something we can create? Is this something we can manufacture? I think each one of us can create this moment, but we're not like putting the perfect recipe together. We're already creating these moments. This is my perspective. I'm not saying for sure I know this, but I believe this to be true. We are constantly creating these moments that are percolating in our subconscious that are just waiting for the alignment to happen. It's already there. It's already there. But we have to bring it forward, but we can't force it forward. We're just waiting for that moment to show up.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, and it almost seems like an important part of that recipe is courage, because you had to literally walk yourself through and figuratively, mentally walk yourself through leaving your hotel that night and all the excuses that were coming up. And it's almost like from your story, the reward to being courageous in the direction of authenticity are those moments where you can actually take advantage of moving forward.
Well, I feel like, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase what my guest said. It's your truth is, and I'm going to try to remember how she said it. It's kind of like your truth is what it is in that moment. You can only create the truth in that moment. You can't create what your truth is going to be 5 minutes from now. Now, it may be the same, but in that moment, something else is going to show up, and that's going to be your truth then.
Nice.
When I came out of the closet at 19 to my parents, that was my truth. But my truth at that moment was, this is who I know I am.
Right.
But I didn't have the courage to move forward. And unfortunately, Mom and Dad, when you did send me to the pastor to talk to him about, not being gay, it didn't work because he was really hot. So that was also my truth, right? Yeah. So it was just these interesting things, but our truth follows us until that truth is really finally ready. When, even through the pain and the sorrow and the fear that I might lose my kids, I was in my truth.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't be anybody but who I was. And I'm not trying to put myself up on a pedestal, but I'm damn glad I was able to show my kids my truth and to see how much that truth has impacted them to live their truth. And when you get to live your truth, in my mind, you're at your best.
Man, I can't overstate how good it feels to hear your children say that you've made a difference or that they appreciate you, or to notice it in their life. So I can only imagine the pride. I think of the pendulum swinging when we're in having very bad times in life or hard times, that the pendulum swings back and it goes just as high in the other direction. That there could be a lot of pride in seeing how stepping out and being who you are has impacted your family.
Well, of course, it means I have to give them my credit card all the time, too.
Sure.
But, it's all just part of the equation, right?
Well, now more than ever, living that truth and being proud of who you are, it's never been more important. And Rick, being in a place where you can influence people on so many levels, I mean, a lot of people are going through some very hard times right now. In many different movements, and what I guess what are you seeing where you are? What are you seeing with your clients? What are you telling people right now at this very moment to help them through personal, through sexual, through race troubles that people are afraid to be who they are out in public or even in their personal lives?
I think it's really interesting given where we are, because so much truth is coming forward. So much truth that's been sitting there that has been hidden.
Yeah. And
some of it not, I don't even want to say it's not good. Some of it just has been waiting to say, okay, now let's see what you folks are made of.
Yeah.
Now let's see if you can learn this lesson. And everybody deserves, in my book, to live their truth, provided that your truth doesn't infringe on somebody else living their truth.
Right.
That doesn't mean we have to agree. And I'm as I'm saying this, I'm like, yeah, remember that when you get off this podcast and you start cursing about something. Everybody deserves it. In my book, the difference is when you think what you deserve in basically gives you the right to infringe on me and my rights as a human, then we're not on the same team.
Yeah. You
can be, I don't care. You can believe whatever you want to believe. You can support whatever party you want to support. You can look at whatever you want to look at and say, I can't treat this person because of the color of the skin, fine. That's your belief, that's your truth, but you can hold that to be true for you, but make sure it doesn't hurt that other person.
Right.
I don't care if you want to be the most racist person in the world, you do that and you do that your way. As long as it doesn't hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
And what's interesting when I say that is, and I have to check myself when I say this sort of stuff, because I catch myself and have to kick myself in the ass from time to time, because I can do this in a heartbeat in my own community. I want you guys to be good to each other, and I want you to love each other as LGBTQ people. And then the next thing I know coming out of my mouth, because I'm human, surprise,
right,
is, girl, what are you, what are you doing? You know? And I'm like, wait. Do not be that hypocrite. And part of the reason for where I am and where I feel like I continue to grow on a daily, moment by moment basis is checking my own hypocrisy. I have to check it on a daily basis. And if I don't check in with my own hypocrisy and make sure I am not being that person, then I might as well hang up everything I'm trying to do in the world. Right. Not saying again I'm perfect, because I know I'm not. That's one of my okay, brother, girl, you gotta realize you just really screwed up there. Okay, I did. I really screwed up there. But I think it's part of, and I hate using the word woke, but it's kind of that. It's like, are you awake? Are you awake to what you're actually doing? And I had to wake up to what I was actually doing by hiding in the closet. I had to wake up to what I was actually doing by being one person in front of people and being something altogether different. And I cannot stand hypocrisy. And why do I say it that way? Because I was such a fucking hypocrite for so many years. And so now when I see hypocrisy, I put myself in that mirror and go, okay, if you're going to call it out, you better make damn sure, buddy, that you're not doing it too.
Yeah, it's a good balance, man, to keep yourself in check and pay attention to the judgments you're having or the unconscious, assumptions you're making about other people and recalibrating in that way. I'm interested also in talking about what you do first of all, thank you for getting so personal with your story, and clearly you even tell those stories on stage, and they're emotional to experience, and you also can get emotional from the video that I was watching earlier. And so just thank you for that, first of all. You've gone through this in your life now, and you've come to a place where you're in your authenticity, and now you have this truth and this gift that you share with people, and you use some of the same verbiage, like uncloseting, in your coming out of the closet in your business or in organizations. But I imagine there's a different process there, or maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's like you've got to figure out what's true and you've got to state it to the world. But how does that transition over? How do you bring what you've learned into organizational, spectrums?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. It's like, if you are hiding in the closet as a leader, you're not fully being present, or you're not fully showing up, or if you're expecting your people to do certain things, but yet here's this expectation, but you're saying, but go play in this little closet, so to speak. Here, we want this, but you got to do it in this realm. You're guiding people to perform in the closet. If you're telling your marketing team, we need to expand, but by the way, only do this to do that, you're putting people in a closet or a box, whatever you want. It's the same metaphor as a box.
Right.
But it's like, having somebody on the team who's in accounting. So, let's use, Jennifer, she's in accounting. She deals with customers and their payments and everything. But on the flip side, when she's dealing with that, she's hearing, well, your sales team said this and they da. So Jennifer goes to the vice president of sales or the vice president of marketing or the director, whoever. And she goes, I have an idea and this is what I'm experiencing. Oh, okay, great, thanks. But you're in accounting, so just go do what the accounting team does.
Right. Stay in your lane.
You're just stay in your lane, stay in your closet. But yet let's have this kumbaya organization. You can't have a kumbaya organization if you have everybody stuck in these closets. So how do you bring your team out of lack of collaboration closet? How do you bring your team into a new closet where innovation flourishes? How do you bring your customers into the loyalty that you want if you're holding back their ability to be loyal because of some closet you've inadvertently created that doesn't give them the ability to be your most loyal customer? Everybody's got closets, and everybody has an excuse or a fear that is going to cause them to apologize for the closet they're in.
Wow. And so you jump into an organization, you just start wrecking stuff. You just start throwing doors open and flipping their bed over, and
right.
And you're like, you don't
I
even
mostly
talk
work
about
with
this,
wineries,
man.
so I have to be really careful because I don't want to knock the wine bottles over. I really appreciate wine. But I love going into organizations and going, well, this is interesting. This is happening, and there's so much confusion around this. But what if you got really curious about that confusion? Oh, okay. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, we're going to start asking some questions. Oh, okay, that sounds good. And I always bring this up. It's like, what do you think is going to happen if we start asking the right questions and you start getting the right answers about implementing a new employee engagement program?
Right.
Well, we might do that. Well, yeah, you might do that, but you might actually get the courage to go do that. In fact, you might get the courage to do some really radical stuff. And what I'm literally taking them through is the same exact process that I'm taking somebody who's kind of being like, okay, I know I'm gay. I feel it. I think I'm gay. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm so confused. I'm not sure where I want to go. So, okay, well, let's get curious about this. Because what I know is the more curious I can make people by asking the right questions and them starting to get the answers, that fuels the fire for courage. And from the courage, it then gets them more committed to go be what they want to do. And the more committed you become to it, it's easy to have the confidence because you're like, yes, I know I'm committed to this because I've now answered a lot of questions. I've built up my courage. I'm committed to take this thing forward, but confidence isn't the end all be all because confidence has got to lead to you consistently showing up as who you are. It's consistently showing up in this is how we're going to do this customer service program, or this is how we're going to consistently engage our employees. It's the same exact process, whether it's somebody coming out of the closet for their sexuality or somebody coming out of the closet to say, I am going to leave this 6-figure corner office job and go build something of my own. It's the same exact process.
You know, I have to imagine when you work with these organizations, and I say that because I've been there. You well, correct me if I'm wrong. You probably tend to get pushback from people who feel protective of the silos that they've built up for themselves, and their departments and their organizations. You have the marketing people, and I'm speaking from personal experience, where you have a consultant come in or somebody like yourself with this whole new vision, this whole new game plan to let's pump up this team so we can get more sales, bring in that, or raise that that quarterly revenue, whatever. But then you have the people who don't want their job to change. They don't want to have things. They don't want their lives to be disrupted. Whereas also on the leadership side, you have these leaders who are saying, okay, let's do this. Let's do what this person says. And then when, that you don't get the results you want, then the blame gets, shifted. So have you seen that before?
Yes. And the piece of the puzzle that you are describing that gets missed oftentimes is what is the actual outcome that you truly want to endure the pain to make happen. They have to come to this like, we know there may be some pain in where we're going. Right. We understand that this may cause us to have some people go by the wayside. This may cause us to have to really shift. But in the pain, which is the same pain as me coming out of the closet and finally admitting that I'm gay, and the pain that comes along with that, along with the joy, it's got to be part of the equation. part of also what shows up, interestingly enough, is the people with the pushback are very much the same people who push back about somebody coming out of the closet. Oh, you can't be gay. Oh, you can't do this. There's always going to be some pushback. So it's about finding the way to navigate around the pushback or to embrace the pushback, to make it part of the solution. My family pushed back immensely on me finally coming out of the closet. It started even at 19. No, you're going to go talk to the pastor.
Right.
They pushed back. I can't believe you're going to do this. You're going to ruin your family. I can't believe you're doing this. You're going to ruin your daughter's lives. And it took years and years and years of me pushing back equally, but sometimes pushing back in the wrong way. Other times pushing back like, you can believe what you want to believe, but this is who I am and I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's about knowing the end goal that's got to be, quote, got to be achieved, not needs to be achieved. Too many people get into, I need you to accept me. No, you don't need anybody to accept you.
Right.
You think you do, but you don't. And so it's about finding that ultimate end goal that is going to be the thing in an organization. And this isn't just Rick walking and stuff like a bull in a china closet. This is, we have got to get clear on what this end goal is.
Yeah.
We have to be very clear. You have to know there's skin in the game. You have to know there's risk involved here. You have to know that this is going to get messy.
Yeah.
But you're willing to get messy to get to the end result.
Rick, let me ask you a blunt question, and this is more on the personal side of things as opposed to the professional side. You know, going back to you telling your family, and this could be yourself, this could be definitely myself. How many times were you just told point blank that you're fucking selfish? That if you want to do this, you're secluding your family, you're ostracizing them. There's no chance in hell you're going to accomplish this. You're just being selfish. I know I've been told that. I mean, how many times do you hear that before you say, no, I'm doing this for myself because I deserve it. I deserve the chance to be happy, both professionally and personally.
More times than I can even count. It's a ridiculous amount of times. And what was ironic is I come out of the closet. In the midst of all this, I lose my job, not because of that, kind of because of that, because I just couldn't handle all the pressure. Also, we were downsizing. It was one of those lovely, like, hey, we're going to downsize, but we're going to have you help us downsize. And then, oh, by the way, you're out of a job. Cool. Love you. But it's such a great experience because these are the things that keep us moving forward. Yeah. So in the midst of that, of course, that gave people the fuel. See, we told you, now you're out of a job because you're gay. No, I wasn't out of a job because I'm gay. Oh, look, you've been unemployed. See, if you hadn't decided to do this, this is God's way of saying you shouldn't have done this. No, that's not it. It's a tight job market right now. Oh my gosh, so you took a really big cut in pay. Yeah, well, I didn't need that big paycheck really to get by. I'm doing okay. Oh my gosh, you lost your second job. Oh, this is because you're not paying attention and da-da. It gives them such fuel until you finally say, I've heard you and I'm no longer listening to it.
Yeah.
So if you want me to be part of this equation, you can say what you want to say, but every time this comes up, I'm not going to be here. And it took a lot of years. I mean, if I had to count, I would probably be a very rich man if I had $1, literally $1. For every time somebody said something that was detrimental to me coming out or starting my business, I would probably be richer than I am because of what I've done.
Yeah.
Because it's a constant barrage. And the thing that shows up, it's because that's that person's perspective of what they can't do.
Yeah. It
has nothing to do with you. In fact, I don't know if you or your listeners have ever heard this analogy, but it was one that I learned in my coaching training is what somebody says is all about them. What you hear is all about you. Mm. And just kind of take that in, because if you really think about it, every time somebody says something, so even right now is what I'm saying, it's actually kind of about me trying to share something with your listeners and you guys.
Sure.
But it's also how you hear it is going to become all about you. And there's going to be listeners that are going to just heard that and like, this guy is nuts. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's because there's some piece of them that isn't willing to take something like that in and go, well, how could that help me?
Yeah.
Or if that's making me confront my own demons.
You know,
I just happen to dress my demons up in really fancy clothes and make them look really good.
They've got to look fabulous, right?
They got to look fabulous.
So, Rick, there's a question that I've got a friend named Jennifer. We get together maybe once a quarter. We've gotten in the habit over the years just to randomly text each other, "Are you happy?" You know, it's a question that you think is basic, it's simple, it's something that you should be asked often, but even the closest people in your life don't tend to ask you that question. And it can take some thought to answer that. And so you being the first guest we've had that I'm asking this to, because we've had so much backstory at this point, Rick, are you happy? Are you happy with the way that your life is shaped up to at this point in time? And I hope I know the answer to it, but I just want to hear you articulate it.
Happiness is so moment to moment, and lifelong. If I look at the crystal ball right now and knew that in the next 20 seconds, 5 seconds, it would be done, absolutely, I'm happy. If 5 minutes from now I get off of this podcast and suddenly, oh my God, this thing woke up and I'm like, oh my God, I have this big problem, I may not be happy.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of how I see life and how I live my life, I'm fucking thrilled. I am so amazingly thrilled with the challenges, the joy, the insights. There isn't a day that doesn't go by. Even in this podcast, there's been yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while. And even as you were saying, are you happy? One of the things that I encourage my clients to do to that point is every day to ask themselves when they wake up in the morning and when they go to sleep at night, how are you doing? How are you doing? I don't give a shit about what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, Trey, how are you doing? Literally have that conversation with yourself, because if you're going to find happiness, you need to have the question with yourself.
Yeah.
And happiness is such a beautiful thing, and it's such an elusive thing at times, that in the elusiveness is when you find the beauty.
Yeah. You know, I know it's not the most profound thing, but about a year ago, I realized for me that I was saying, oh, I'll be happy when I have this or that or whatever. And it finally just took me stating to myself verbatim, happiness is not something that you get from external sources. Happiness is within you. If you can feel happy with what you have right now, you can be happy with what you have tomorrow or don't have tomorrow. It became a very internal thing for me, and Ernie can attest to this. It was a shift in my life and my mentality, and it was a huge turning point for me.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
I knew he was going to have some smart ass remark like that.
Hey, you guys left the dead air. I was wanting to jump back in the conversation.
I think it's so interesting though, when we start to look at this and we start to define what happiness is, it can be so different from moment to moment. I mean, honestly, right up until I got on this podcast with you guys, I was just like, God, can this day just get done?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then I was so happy to go, I get to go have some fun, and I don't have to host. I don't have to think about all of this. I just get to go and blabber and hope that whatever I say is good, it delivers. And even if it doesn't, I'm not sitting there going, what's the next email that might come in that could ruin my day? I get to go be happy in doing this. And when I get done with this, I may get to go be happy doing something else.
That's great.
But we get to change the happiness quotient moment to moment.
That's a very, very great way of saying that. It really is.
I'm interested to hear more about your podcast, man. 40 plus podcast, correct?
Yeah, there's two of them. There's the 40 plus Real Men, Real Talk, where I beat the crap out of men talking about the stuff that guys need to be talking about that they're not. That one's a year old at this point. Love it. It's a lot of fun. We talk about everything from vulnerability to losing hair to getting fat to not having erections to, anything you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
And it is pretty vulnerable. I'm amazed at what that podcast has become. It's supposed to be short format, and I never can squeeze it into the 15 minutes I say, because we'll get a guy that we're talking about stuff and suddenly we're almost to the wrap up, and then suddenly there they go. It's okay, well, we're just going to keep going. that whole erection conversation just took a whole nother turn.
It's so funny when we as men get this persona that we're very closed up, but as soon as you give a man space to talk, it's kind of hard to shut us up.
Mm-hmm. It is. And then the other one is called Life Uncloseted, which was originally the Coming Out Lounge. So it was all about coming out stories and things such as that. And a couple of years ago, I started feeling the urge to this is bigger than just the LGBTQ coming out stuff. And I had to think about it a lot, because I'm I don't want to damage the brand, but I also feel a calling to something bigger than just my own community. And I made the leap. I'm we're going to tell coming out stories from all kinds of directions. And it's been really beautiful. I don't have the millions of downloads, but I have the right amount of downloads. And the stories and the perceptions that we bring in front of people are amazing. And sometimes they're not, sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss, but it's pretty amazing to be able to we can tell an LGBTQ story. And then the next time we're talking to somebody, one of my favorites just recently, I interviewed a gal by the name of Amy Downs, who was the last survivor pulled out of the Oklahoma City bombing.
Wow.
She was laying in the rubble for 6 hours, assumed to be dead. She weighed a little over 300 pounds, was a clerk in the credit union that was in that building, never had gone to college, was just kind of I'm just going to get by in life. And in that 6 hours, she decided, if I get out of this, I'm going to do something with my life.
Wow.
She is now the CEO and president of that credit union, finished college, and has ran, I think, 1, if not 2 Ironman marathons.
That's incredible.
So there's a coming out story. It's you came out of this horrendous space, found yourself. She's not gay. She's not lesbian. She just, here's my truth. And here's how I dumped my fears. I, got rid of all my excuses, and I decided how I was going to live my life unapologetically, which is really the tagline for everything I do. It's dump your excuses, face your fears, and live your unapologetic life.
Mm. Wow. And you also said in the email prior to us recording that you're working on a new book. Are you able to talk about that now?
Yeah, I am. Because the more I talk about it, the more it kicks me in the ass. You're going to get this book done.
Nice. Yeah.
So you got to get it done.
A little bit of accountability here.
So this is where I'm going to give a big old warm hug to little COVID-19. Thank you for giving me the space to kick myself in the ass and start this book. And it's kind of funny. My husband and I were on a cruise the week before Valentine's 2020, right as COVID was starting to become the thing. It was already wide open in China. And even as we got on our cruise ship, we got the note that says, actually got emailed, you are going to be fine. We're not allowing people who've traveled to these countries. We've taken all the precautions, blah, blah, blah. It hadn't even hit the US. It hadn't even hit Italy at that point, really. And we got off that cruise ship, and of course, boom, everything unfolded. But on that cruise is when I took what I had from notes and literally started outlining the book. And it is the culmination of me finally making this bigger shift from Everybody's Got Closets. And so the working title is Uncloseted, and it is my tagline: Uncloseted, dump your excuses, face your fears, and live your unapologetic life. And Awesome. It's taking just short snippets. This is why it's taking me a while, because I'm very verbose. Not that you can figure that out from how I talk.
Not at
so
all.
much. Not at all. Right. I could just, it's like, this is now my podcast. You guys just shut the fuck up. But I'm being very conscious about this book. My first book was Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay,
Yep.
A Late Bloomer's Guide to Coming Out, which was totally about the whole coming out process, my story, activities, how you do certain pieces. This one, I want to be like that. You read like this 1 or 2 pages and it's like the value bomb every time you read, like, okay, nice. So if I'm stuck in this like confusion space, he just delivered like 12 value bombs on like, I read a page and a half and I'm like, I'm sweating bullets and going, okay, I can't pick this book up again. Mm-hmm. Not that I think I'm not good, but it's kind of that message. I want people to consume this very quickly, but also each time they consume, there's like, whoa, okay, now I just got taken to church. Now I got to go like figure this out. Now let's go to the next one. So my goal is by the end of summer to have the rough draft completed, if not sooner. And then we'll see where it goes. I don't know if I'm going to self-publish. I have some opportunities to possibly go traditional publishing, but that's where I get really bitchy. It's like, well, if we're going to do this, girls, we're going to have it done by the end of the year, right?
Right.
And I know traditional publishing, they'll be like, yeah, we'll have this out for you in 2022. Don't think so. So,
well, please keep us in the loop as to when that comes out, because well, first of all, I'd love to read it, and second of all, I'd love to have you back on when you do put it out there.
So I got a question for you, Trey. What makes you happy? Or are you happy?
I am happy, and I can confidently say that. Well, I've been able to confidently say that for some time now. What makes me happy is having the freedom to do what I truly enjoy, both in work and both in my personal life as well. This podcast has been such. This is not the right way to say it, but it's been a saving grace in the sense that this is my creative outlet that has turned into something much more, and it's strengthened a friendship that was it was an acquaintanceship at first, and then Ernie and I came together and just started having deep conversations that turned into a very strong friendship. So I certainly appreciate that. But when I went into business for myself, I said I want the freedom to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, go for a run, do whatever the fuck I want, and then start working and get the things done, enjoy the work I do, and then later in the day, do what I want, not go to bed stressing about some shit my boss said. And yes, I'm happy, Rick. I am happy, and I appreciate you asking me that question because it's a very important question that I don't personally ask myself enough. So thank you.
Ernie, I got a question for you. You want to go have a drink? You thought I was going to ask you the same thing. So no, I think it's interesting to ask ourselves these questions. And so, yeah, Ernie, what about you, man? Are you happy?
Yeah. I mean, I spend time in sadness and anger, but I have found a way to even love myself there. But outside of having, an emotion overcome me and maybe getting lost in it, which I don't do as much as I used to because I've spent a lot of time trying to distill what it actually means to be happy. And for me, having awareness of how I'm feeling is basically the key to happiness for me. So being mad is one thing, but there's a very different experience of being mad and not knowing that I'm wrapped up in being mad versus knowing that I'm having a visceral response of anger, and knowing that I'm having a response actually allows me to still have some love and cultivate even, dare I say, happiness around that. But I, over the past 5 years, so I have 2 kids now, I'm married. I was one of the most irresponsible, depressed and lost young men that I could possibly even imagine. But I guess I'm sure a lot of people can even say that for themselves. But coming into a place where having a relationship that I'm focused on 100% and not giving myself outs or not being unfaithful, not letting temptation get a hold of me, and then also having two young humans that rely on me, and that I also want to really give them a good impression of what's possible in the world. So at this point in my life, I'm creating some of the deepest love that I've ever had with a woman, and really, really proud at my ability to know what emotions that I'm feeling in my body, move them through my body, and then to be in the moment with my family, and then pursue things that I care about and create things that I care about. So, I'm happy.
I think it's really interesting when we as humans, but especially we as men, can allow that vulnerability to come out of the closet and to admit, this is what makes me be who I am. This is what's me. And I see so many people hide behind what they believe is themselves. And yet they're so unhappy because they won't be themselves. They won't truly be themselves. And in my world, it's kind of an interesting journey for me as a gay man, because when I came out, I lost close to 160 pounds. And I'm 6'4", and 160 pounds taken off this body and this frame does not look good. I look sick. And that was actually one of the first things that happened in my family was, oh my God, he's got AIDS. I'm like, really? That's where we're going to go. And it was about me finding myself. And then I started to put some bulk back on in a good way. And then I started cycling. And so then I lost it again. And I was kind of like all over the place for a while. But because of my size, I'm a big guy. I mean, my frame is big. Now, there is no getting rid of the rib cage. It's going to be there no matter what. And so in my world, I would be considered in the gay community what they call a bear. Big, kind of big, heavier guy, furry, beard, all that sort of stuff. And I fought it. I'm like, no, because I had this preconceived notion of what a bear meant in the community.
Right.
Until I just embraced myself. Doesn't mean I know I want to lose some weight. That's cool. But I'm accepting that piece of me. And as soon as I just embrace, it's just a funky little label somebody throws on me. Doesn't mean that's who I am. Doesn't mean I'm this forever. And when we embrace who we are, and I share that only as I don't care what the freaking label is that somebody throws on you. Just because you host a podcast doesn't mean you're a podcast host forever.
Right.
Doesn't mean it defines you for who you are right now. But embrace the things that are you, that make you the happiest and that bring you most alive. And you'll find that life is a hell of a lot easier to navigate when you host yourself. I mean, when you really hold on to yourself. And what I mean by host yourself, you host yourself in your body, in your essence, in your spirit, in your soul. You host yourself because nobody else is going to host you and nobody else is going to hold you better than you.
And that's the end of the podcast.
That
was incredible, man. Yeah.
Wow. I truly don't. That is the most poignant way to put that. And being comfortable with who you are. I don't think it's something that's hard to embrace. Whether that's your personal life or professional life, it's going against any sort of grain is never an easy thing to do. And, when you can finally admit to yourself that this is who I am, there's no turning back from that.
It's funny too, as you reflect on hosting yourself in your body and in your spirit. What I notice is that I was actually even kind of afraid to claim publicly that I'm happy, which is such a strange ownership challenge that's coming up. It's like, wait, no, I'm supposed to be saying, oh, it's really hard out here, it's really challenging, and there's, man, I'm struggling, because that's, you know, a lot of people live with that stuck in that, you know, pattern of thinking. It's just strange to be able to own that part, even like own, hey man, I'm fucking happy, I feel good, my life is really good, and even now reflecting it, and I've noticed in the past, like to be fully authentic in the way that, man, these are the parts of my life that I love, and I'm very happy to share them with people openly. It's just an interesting thought that I wanted to share. Another way of accepting myself, and I'm sure other people could also use.
Well, I think we're also accustomed to the de facto standard of ask somebody what they don't like about themselves, and they can go in a heartbeat.
Right.
Ask them what they love about themselves, and there's going to be a pause.
Mm-hmm.
They're really going to have to think about it. And it's just human nature. It's how we have been conditioned, so to speak, that it's easy to talk about the negative, but it's really hard to talk about the positive. But it's because we've been so conditioned about being who we are is not something you're supposed to talk about. But what if being who you are was everything you're supposed to talk about, that gives you the confidence to continue to just show up?
Yeah, solid, man.
Yeah, and that's yeah, that's a wonderful way to kind of bring things to a wrap here. But Rick, I do. It's become a fun thing for me, and it's actually become. It's starting to make me feel like I'm kind of cheating in life by asking our guests what their most life-changing book has ever been, because believe it or not, I do go through these and read these, and I, like everybody else, I want to ask you, what book has been such an influence on your life that you credit it with it just completely shifting the way you think or operate?
Well, one that comes to mind right off the bat is A Year of Saying Yes by Shonda Rhimes. She's the creator of Grey's Anatomy and all those great shows that are never going to go away. Love them. And it was so interesting to read that book. And I wouldn't say it had a huge influence. It's probably not the biggest influence, but of recent years it has been. Because, like we were just saying, we so often can go to the negative really easy. We can say, oh no, I don't want to do that. Oh no, I can't do that. Why is it so hard to say yes? And it was interesting to read her book because she said no to so many things. And the majority of the things that she said no to was because of her self-perception. This is a producer, a director, a writer who has hit show after hit show after hit show. But she wouldn't show up for things. She wouldn't say yes to things because she didn't have enough confidence in herself. The irony is just, it's almost wasted.
Right.
When you read something like that, and then you start to take it into yourself. And it came to me in a moment a couple of years ago where I was struggling. I was like, I'm so done with all of this. I love what I do, but I was to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I can coach another person. I don't know if I can get up on another stage. And I knew what was happening is I was being called to make a shift. But every time I went to the shift, I'd say, oh no, can't do that. Oh no, I can't do that. Oh no, I can't do that. And then I read that book. I got really deep with myself about, Rick, why the hell are you saying no so much? And I started saying yes. But I only started saying yes to the things that scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And as I learned to work that yes muscle in the right way, there were still things I was saying yes to. I'm like, dumbass, why'd you say yes to that? I started realizing how I became less and less afraid. And that's when I started getting on bigger stages. And that's when I started going, you know what? You have power, man. Not because I want to be some like, oh my God, I want people, but you have power. I know I have power to help shift people. But if I say no to it, I'm not using what I was put on this earth to do. I'm not going to be able to impact that one person who might listen to this podcast today and go, fuck yeah, I'm done saying no.
Today's the day that I'm coming out of the closet.
Mm-hmm. Whatever that closet looks like.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great book, easy read, love it. It had a huge impact on my life 3 years ago because I literally started saying yes to stuff.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Rick, thank you, truly.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's whenever we can dig down deep and talk about things like happiness and, what it means to be that way. It's truly a delight. I want to give you an opportunity to let people know where they can find you, your website, your podcast, your book, Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay. Just the floor is yours.
Sure. So you can usually find me at Tolosa Winery, about 2 miles from my house. That's
Perfect.
where I spend most afternoons.
Now,
So,
you did say somewhere that you spend more money on wine than you do your daughters. Is that correct?
Boy, I knew that would come up and haunt me. During COVID, I probably have spent more money because we've drank all the wine that we have invested in over the years. But yeah, we tend to spend, I think right now we're low. Our wine collection's a little bit low. I think we're at like 280 bottles right now. So it's a little bit on the low side for us, but I do love wine. But yes, definitely a wino. I have another business that I do some wine consulting. But where you can find me, the easiest place to find everything is Rick Clemons, CLEMONS.com. You'll find the good, the bad, the ugly about everything about dumping your excuses, facing your fears, and living your life unapologetically. And yeah, I'm kind of a big old ugly bald guy, but I think you might enjoy spending a little bit of time looking at the website. And no, there's no X-rated photos. Sorry, you don't get to see what happened in the London hotel room. None of that's on there, but everything else is there for you.
Yeah, and if you think you may be able to be inspired by Rick or be helped by him, certainly reach out. I mean, this conversation has been incredible, and we only had an hour and change with you. So again, thank you, Ernie.
Guys, thank you for the opportunity. I love this conversation. And I did check you guys out. You're both really cute. So you're on my team already.
I'll take it.
There we go.
Rick
Thank
approved.
you very much. Awesome, Rick. Take care. Again, from the bottoms of our hearts, Ernie and I would like to thank Rick for joining us on this podcast and this exceptionally moving conversation. Rick, we truly, truly appreciate it. If you would like to learn more about Rick, I highly encourage you to check out rickclemons.com. That's RickClemons.com. There are also some additional links in the show notes. And if you visit his episode page at themosaiclifepodcast.com, you'll be able to check out Rick's talk called No Excuses, No Fears, No Apologies at the World Domination Talk 2019. If you are part of the LGBTQ community and you are looking for resources because you may not be in the best or safest place right now, please visit glaad.org. That's glad.org/resource list, or visit thetrevorproject.org for additional resources. There are people there to help, and there are people who care about you. Please reach out. Again, thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about the Mosaic Life podcast, you can follow us on Instagram at @OneMosaicLife or on Facebook. If you search for the Mosaic Life podcast, you'll see our little orange circle. You'll remember that from the beginning of the episode. Click that, like our page, follow us, and then, of course, visit the mosaiclifepodcast.com for all of your subscription resources. Last but not least, do us a favor. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That goes a long way in helping others find out about what we're doing and helps us get better and better guests on the podcast. Thank you all so much. Be safe and be well.